over a prolonged period of time. What do you think about intermittent fasting in general? Because clearly you like the ketogenic diet, but intermittent fasting, although similar, has some differences.
Yeah, I love intermittent fasting as well. I do it for maybe 5 years, and I also started off with trying to get ripped as hell.
Yeah.
With it, like the lean gains type of protocol where you would eat 8 hours and fast for 16 hours, and it's very effective because I'm not sure like how effective it is in terms of the physiological aspect. These short fasts, daily intermittent fasting, it's more of like a psychological thing.
Sure.
Where it makes it so much easier to eat less calories, and it also reduces. It also it reconceptualizes your relationship with food and hunger.
That's a good way.
And if you, like for instance, let's say if you do eat this, let's say a donut for breakfast or a bagel or something, you're gonna go off this negative spiral or a negative, loop where you're gonna keep on craving the same food throughout the day because you already gave into the temptation in the morning. But if you hold the line, until the noon or something like that, you've already, mustered enough willpower and you've mustered enough self-discipline that it's easier to stay consistent until the evening.
Yeah, and I think that willpower transfers over to everything in your life and other dietary choices with the foods you're making, but just in general. I think that, for example, let's give the example of people building their bodies in the gym and then becoming more disciplined in other areas of their life. I think it's the same for fasting, because the moment you can withstand something which has been ingrained in what you've been doing for the last 20 years of your life, eating breakfast, and the moment you can make yourself realize over time that it wasn't as difficult as you thought, and you become used to it and it becomes easier to do that, then it's kind of like you move on to the next thing. And you find the next little challenge where you can incorporate hormesis, excluding yourself of pleasure to improve a good type of stress. So I think that intermittent fasting really represents what's wrong with our society as a whole, which is that we're very Epicurean, right? We're always pleasure seeking. We're always waking up in the morning and the first thing we do is eat breakfast. Now, this isn't to say that breakfast is bad per se. Breakfast is bad for many people because of the mindset they have going into it. It's not like I'm eating this breakfast specifically to fuel myself. For some people it is, sure, but the idea is I wake up and I need to stimulate myself in some way.
Yeah,
and when you can kind of step back from that, when you can have self-control in the first few moments you wake up especially, then the rest of your day is transformed because of that, just like making your bed, for example. It's a similar kind of concept. So I think that, for meta-analyses, as you're saying, for the physiological aspect, I've done some comparisons between groups which were fasting and groups which are just restricting their calories. And in terms of weight loss, it generally tends to be the same over time. But what I like about intermittent fasting or low-carb diets is it just basically lays out a more ideal situation for you to be in a deficit. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like if you open your eyes and if you check your smartphone immediately, if you go grab a cup of coffee right away, if you start eating breakfast, like you enter this roller coaster of stimulation, constant stimulation like this, or wired up society. And that's what's causing, these different problems people have of, they can't stop watching porn. They can't stop masturbating. They can't stop drinking. They can't stop smoking. They can't stop binge eating. All those things are connected because they can't stop stimulating themselves. They feel this, they want to escape from this feeling of emptiness. They're afraid of feeling like losing something, they're attached to they're not attached to the cigarette or the alcohol. They're attached to the stimulation or the stimulating aspect of it. And with fasting, you learn to experience this emptiness where you're not stimulated, where you are forced to suffer in a kind of, like a very mild sense. It's not real suffering, but you're forced to, you understand that you've been just, conditioned by these stimulations. And with, let's say, if these physiological aspects the physiological aspects of fasting will start to appear only after you fast for longer than 24 hours. You know, the cellular detoxification mechanism called autophagy, which revs up during fasting, it starts to rev up especially after, the first 48 hours. So if you want to get like the serious health benefits of fasting, increased lifespan and longevity and cellular detox, then you would have to fast for longer than 2 to 3 days.
Yeah,
usually.
like a 3-day is, I think, what's been researched to reset your immune cells, as they say. And I think that if you're in a healthy condition, right, and you have permission from your doctor, et cetera, then every 6 months or so, I think that's a pretty cool way to incorporate some serious self-discipline. But I think it fundamentally comes down to not being so foolish as to ignore the very mundane things in your life, which represent the relationship of pleasure and comfort. And I think the first example, I don't know, making your bed or something like that, or just, I think the best way to get rid of bad habits is to try and find these small instances of the relationship of pleasure in your life. And meditation helps with this because you can be more self-aware with your actions. And when you're not in a rush, when you're not kind of external and you're somewhere else and you're thinking about something else, and when you're present, then you can think more about the decisions you're making. And because of that, it's kind of like a positive spiral and a positive process of becoming better and better and better. So for me personally, intermittent fasting was really what kickstarted that, which is why I'm such a big proponent of it,
Yeah. And funny you mentioned, like meditation helps you to gain this similar meta awareness perspective. Like I just did in the beginning of this year in January, I had a 5-day meditation retreat.
Oh, wow.
And I fasted in the entire time. Like I fasted for 100 hours during that time. And, it definitely, it made you think, it made you, experience your body in a different way. You started to notice how you started to notice how to, how your body actually can function without food, and how you can actually preserve more energy while still being very clear and effective in your day-to-day activities.
Yeah, because then, I mean, the moment you do something like that, you realize that the body's much more capable than we give it credit for. Our body is
so powerful and much more powerful than I think. It's our own mind that gets in our way, and let's say our subconscious urges and evolutionary predispositions that get in our way. One advice I would definitely give to someone who is struggling with habits or with eating or something like that is to not trust your senses and not trust your urges. If you were to trust your urges, if you were to trust the signals that your body is giving to you, then we'd all get fat.
Yeah.
We would all be obese. We would eat sugar. We would, binge eat all the time, and we would sleep in, and we would procrastinate. Those types of things you can't trust.
Yeah, I think that in today's society, we live like kings and queens, right? Ole!